Hello everybody and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. It is the 1st of the month, 1st of December, and today we are going to be doing our budget recap for the second pay period of November. Now usually we would be doing the budget with me for this first pay period of December, but because we had a little bit of a what is going to happen situation with the last shared credit card that we are working on, I didn't want to have any potential spoilers on where everything landed. So we are doing the budget recap first so that we can determine where did we land. So if this is the first video of ours that you are seeing, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on it and taking a peek at what we're doing. And if you have checked in with us before, watched some of our videos, welcome back. I very much appreciate you seeing where we're at. So let's take a look and find out where we landed on this last shared credit card that we have. Okay, we are going to zoom in real quick. And first things first, we're going to check out our income. Now, we already knew Mr. M's pay, which did include a a bonus that we weren't actually expecting. So it is significantly higher than it usually is. We did not know at the time when we were doing the budget with me for this pay period what my paycheck was going to look like. This is the pay period where if I'm going to get an incentive payment, we would see it. And usually I do receive one, but we didn't know what that would actually turn into. Well, it ended up being $2,534.14. We did not have any miscellaneous income, but we had another good pay period for Etsy, probably because we're going into the Christmas and holiday season, at $62.40. And then, of course, we had our buffer rollover. That actually ended up being $200.45, not the $200.77 we were thinking. So where does that put us? We are at 2206.52 plus 2534.14 plus 62.4 plus $200.45. So wow, we had a pretty nice income amount to cover for this pay period, but spoiler alerts, we needed it. So going on to our regular recurring costs, we had the second of two $875 mortgage payments. Now I can tell you at the beginning, well, not right at the beginning of next year, but probably March-ish, I would guess, we are probably going to see our mortgage increase. I'm going to guess roughly $50 to $75 per pay period because both our property taxes increased and our home insurance increased. The home insurance increase was a little bit less than what I was expecting, so that's good. Percy, this is not a place for you to be. Okay, you need to get down. Thank you for cooperating. But it's still going to be an increase. Now these we do not do for the second pay period, but we do have many of our variable utilities. We already knew what the costs were for these. There was no change for the electric or for the gas. I am expecting these to start going up in the coming months simply because we're getting into the colder time of the year. We did not have a cost for waste management this month simply because we had double paid. I won't go into that whole situation. We also already knew the cost for the internet, and then our phone bill did actually end up being $90.12. So going forward, instead of having 90 as our guesstimate amount, we will just bump that up to 91. So let's see what our totals look like. 875 plus 127.55 plus 3306 plus 101 plus 90.12. That gives us a total of $1,226.73, so just slightly up from what we were expecting before. We will subtract that from our total income, 503.51, and that gives us a remaining income amount of $3,776.78. All right, savings. So just as part of our normal process for the second pay period, we do put $25 towards the emergency fund, which is very important considering we did drain that. We're going to leave the extra blank for now, but we will put $200 here for the buffer. We'll figure out what the total actually is towards the end. And now I made that all ugly, 225. So we'll take that from here, we will add 225, and that leaves us with $3,551.78 for our remaining income. Okay, cash envelopes, these typically do not change much. The cat is just being a little bit silly. There he is. Hey, purse, what you doing? Yeah. Okay. Hopefully he won't be too much of a distraction. These don't tend to change much as a general rule, but if we do have unexpected costs that fall within any of these categories, then of course we could see some overages. And unfortunately, we do have some of that coming up. However, on a plus side, we did not spend as much, excuse me, for gas as we had anticipated. We only spent $40, which, trust me, we needed that savings. We have the $5. Kitty, your claws hurt. Stop. Thank you. Bye-bye. And then the 10. I know people ask me to include the pets in my videos, but that does not really go well because they don't listen. Percy, seriously, that hurts. Stop. Okay, bye-bye. You're gonna have to go in your room if you don't cut it out. Yeah, somebody is in the market to be put in his bedroom if he's not careful. We have an extra bedroom because it's only two of us, obviously, in this house, and so the cats have their own room. That way they have a place they can be, that the dogs can't get to them, and they can feel comforted and whatnot. It is also a good place for them to be when they are being unruly and pains in my butt. Speaking of pains in my butt, pets, we normally would do $160. We did do that this time, but that $160 was actually not put into the pet envelope. We had to pay ourselves back for the cost of some of Gus's vet bills. So we had taken $160 actually out of the job loss cushion, and so that $160 for this month went directly there. However, Gus seems to be having never-ending issues, and so we did have an additional $265 worth of costs, which ended up bumping us to $425 for... Dude, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to go. Seriously, you are being a menace. $425 for our pet cost. It is what it is. We had at one time a decent amount in our pets, but that drains quickly when you have costs, especially that include medicines and things like that. So let's see, Prime, nothing else, thank goodness, had any changes, but you know, obviously that's more than enough. So what does that put us at? We have 13 plus 12. Percy is sitting here staring at me, just waiting to try and like jump on my lap or jump up and try and climb up my leg with his ouchy claws. He is not a happy camper that I am not paying attention to him. Okay, so is that right? 945. If we took 560 and added 265. Somehow, I don't think that is right. Where did I go wrong here? Because this should have been 560 minus $60 plus an additional 265. It should be 765. Oh, I wrote 200 here for some reason. Oy, see, I am super distracted because of this cat over here. Okay, so 765 is what our total is, and our remaining income from the last one we did is $3,551.78. So we are left with $2,786.78. Now, all of this has already been done. This is just me documenting where we landed so that, you know, we have it on paper and so I can let you guys know where we are. So hopefully, despite the distractions that we have, we will get to the right numbers. But if we don't, I will know because I've already looked this over. Okay. So here we are with the Discover card. We, of course, did our standard second of 2 payments of $613. We're not going to worry about the extra payment for right now. So we will have $613 here. We will add that to our running total. So we are at $2,173.78. For my allowance, I actually did not use all of it. I ended up using $25 instead of the full $30. So saved $5, which hey, every little bit helps. So we'll add that in, and that puts us at $2,148.78. And then we had the $100 that goes to the yard cleanup bucket. Okay. Which puts us at $2,048.78. So now the moment of truth. Obviously, this is more than what we were originally expecting. And so that's great, but we also had extra costs that we weren't expecting, even though we did have some nice bumps in our pay and income side of things. So where are we? Well, if we take 2048 and we subtract 90%, that gives us $204. Now, because we have drained the emergency fund, any money that is going to savings for this process is actually going to go to replenishing that fund instead of going to the job loss savings bucket. So this is actually going to be emergency fund money. And we already know that our rollover extra cents is going to be 78 cents. So let's go fill that in. We have $204. We'll just put EF next to that. And we'll add the 78 cents there, just for documentation purposes. Now, let's find out the debt side. 2,048 minus 204 leaves us with $1,844. that right? Yes. Yes, it is. So $1,844 is marvelous. The question is going to be, and we'll go ahead and put this up here, 1844. Where does that put us as far as, were we able to pay off the Discover card, or is there still a little bit left over that will then need to be paid off in the first pay period of December? Well, let's take a little look and see. Okay, so try and keep a little bit of mystery here. Dun dun dun. Oopsie. So as we can see, last month we ended the pay period with $2,307, or not last month, last pay period, we ended the pay period at $2,376.75. So if you do the math and you subtract the $613 from there, you know, things are looking really good. The only thing that we have to keep in mind is not only was Discover the last shared credit card that we had, it was also the last credit card we had that interest did get applied to it. So the actual starting amount for Discover ended up being $2,447.27. This credit card cycles like around the 18th or 19th of the month, so right around the beginning of the second pay period, and so that's why we have this little bit higher amount, because that's when the interest applies. But if we go ahead and take that 27, subtract 613, that leaves us with $1,834.27. We already know that we had $1,844 left over. We were able to pay the Discover off by the skin of our teeth. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe we are at $0 for Discover. And I made that payment actually before the end of the month. I think I did it on the 29th because I wanted to see that 0 before December. I was so excited to be able to put that payment through. This is definitely a load off of our minds, because now, though now we have cleared those debts. So we are very, very excited about that. It is, like I said, one of those things that we can kind of take a deep breath and let it out and be like, okay, we are now in a much better position than we were, even 3 months ago, and definitely better than we were a year ago. But at the same time, and this is kind of just how I am, I don't linger on situations for too long once they have essentially been completed. We do still have debt that we are going to be tackling. But for right now, we are here and we are celebrating the fact that Discover is at 0. And I have to be honest, if this had been the other direction where we still owed like $9 or something cents, or probably even anything under $100, I probably would have move things around so that we could pay it off. I have to admit. If it had been something a little bit more significant than that, though, then we would have been waiting until the first pay period of December to be able to fully pay it off. But because of this, we can now say Discover's at 0. So what's next? Next we have the job cushion. So how much are we anticipating having when my job goes away? If my job were to have gone away on, November 30th, or even today, December 1st, what resources have we put in place? So first things first, PTO, $8,046. Again, these two, both this and the severance, have asterisks because I'm really not sure how much it's going to come out for not insurance, but Medicaid, Social Security, just standard taxes, those sorts of things. I don't know if they're going to tax them just as standard wages, if they're going to tax that at a different rate, kind of like a bonus or something like that. Not sure. So these numbers are, I'm going to say guidelines, because I could be way off. I could be expecting the taxes to be much lower than they actually are, or I could be expecting them to be higher than they actually are, and we'll end up with more money. It's hard to say. What we can control is how much we have actually saved. And as of the 30th of November, we have saved $15,831.26. Now, if you've been following along, you may notice that this number's not that much different from last month. And that is because we made the decision that any savings money that's going to the savings bucket, is going towards refilling our emergency fund. So that is why we are not seeing a lot of change. And we are going to continue to do that until the emergency fund gets to at least one of our two goals. And we'll touch on that in just a second. So what does that mean in, like real terms? Well, it means we have $28,169.26 available to us for the however long it takes me to find a job. Now, if we're looking at budget-wise, when you take what our current budget is, which is $5,900, we take out how much Mr. M's pay covers for the month, that puts us at $2,200 for what my share needs to cover. That is if we're keeping the budget at the $5,900 mark, which includes $1,226 allocated to go towards debt. In another scenario, we might make the decision to say, okay, we have cleared the shared credit card debt. Yes, we have Mr. M's debt, but he is currently paying for that out of his checking account already. Our shared income hasn't been going to it, and if we needed to, we could keep that situation in place. If we were to do that, we would then reduce our budget, our $5,900 budget, down by that debt amount. And in that scenario, my share of the budget would only be $975. So for those two situations, the higher one, we have roughly 12.8 months worth of budget coverage, or 28.8 months worth of budget coverage, just depending on which budget we decide to follow. Now, this is more just kind of an exercise of information. We do not have any intentions of lowering our budget for right now, but it's good to know in case we have to make a change. Okay. So next is emergency fund. So right now, our emergency fund is at $254.89. That is including the $204 that we added just this pay period. Right down here. It also includes the $147 that we added from last pay period's savings amount, and it includes the $9.73 that was left over from paying the last debt. Now, if you add all of those up, that does not actually come to $254.89, and that is because when we had to drain the emergency fund, the cost of everything was a little bit more than what we had in there, so we dipped a bit into our car maintenance fund. We had previously taken $500 cash out of our car maintenance fund envelope and put it into the bank, and we just put it into the emergency fund savings account. So that money was there, and we did utilize some of it. We have since paid that back, and that's why we are at $254.89. So we have two goals that we are trying to meet. We either well, first of all, we want to get to the typical $1,000, which means we have $745.11 left to go to hit that mark. Ultimately, we would like to make ourselves whole again. So get to where we would be now if we had not drained the fund. And for that, we would need to get to $1,326.14, which is another $1,071.25. Now, along the way, my mom has advised, since she hadn't gotten us any Christmas gift yet, that she was going to give us $300 to go towards our computer, which essentially we would just then put into the emergency fund to, backfill the cost. I don't know if it will actually be $300. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, whatever she decides she wants to gift us. We are, of course, incredibly grateful for. So, that's something for us to consider. Part of what we are going to be doing going forward, because we are now done paying debt out for our shared credit card debt, is we are going to be shifting over to paying off Mr. M's debt. He has a credit card and he has a car loan. Before we actually start that, though, he has indicated he wants us to get our emergency fund back up again. So we're going to be making some changes to how we allocate things. And we'll get a little bit more into it during our budget with me. But as a quick overview, we are no longer going to include a debt line item as part of our process. When we were dealing with credit cards and things that already take money out of our shared checking account, it was kind of an easy process to do mid-month payments and things like that, do the $613 each pay period. Now that we're dealing with a debt that is not linked to the shared credit card or shared checking account, it's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the butt to handle those payments. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to keep our budget at that $5,900. We're not taking the debt amount out. We're just not going to have miniature payments coming out during the pay period. We are going to wait until the very end of the pay period to see how much money we have left over, and then we will do our debt and savings process, and whatever is there for debt, that I'll let Mr. M know, okay, it's $1,000, it's $800, whatever it is, and then he will go and make the extra payment to his car thing. But first we're going to bulk the emergency fund up, and so hopefully the goal is by the first pay period of December, we will have that done, and then we can really start focusing on Mr. M's debt, and we will see how that all turns out. But that is where we are. That is our recap for November, for the second pay period of November, as well as, November as a whole. I feel like we are in a really good place, but I will be honest, for some reason I still feel like it's not enough. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I'm still super uncertain about, where things are going to land once I need to find a new job. I will say that none of this information here about the job loss numbers includes unemployment. I have looked on, our state's website and used some of their information to try and figure out what I might be making per week based on their info, but I'm just not confident enough about the numbers and the calculations to put it to paper and put it out there. So we will wait until I actually have unemployment and have money coming in to see what that looks like. So right now, unemployment is kind of a nebulous thing out to the side, and we'll see where that lands. Speaking of that, there were a couple of people who mentioned some concerns because of the fact that we have made it to the point, and again, thank you everybody who has subscribed, to be able to monetize the channel. Even though our intention is not to, like really push the whole monetization thing and try and make it an income, we are, happy to accept and enjoy any money that does come from it. If we get $100 here or $100 there, hey, that's great. But the concern was, because we are monetizing it, it could be, an issue with unemployment. Well, we do have Etsy as well. And so that is also a side gig and, an area of potential concern where unemployment is concerned. I looked at their rules, and basically the rule was something like you can make up to 1/3 your weekly amount, or 10% of the highest, 10 times the highest minimum wage in the state, which for us is $15.95 an hour, so $159, before it has any impact on the unemployment that you receive. So if I were to make $159.50, I would be fine, and I would still get the full allotment of whatever my weekly unemployment amount was. If I were to make $160.95, so $1 more, it would reduce my weekly amount by that $1. So anything over the limit that they have set will reduce my unemployment dollar for dollar at that point. Is it likely that I will make $100, $160+ every single week? I doubt it. I would actually be very hard pressed to see that being a possibility. But, it's good information to have and to know, what your options are, how they can affect unemployment, and making sure you're doing right by that program. I do not want to take advantage of the program, in a negative way. I have paid into it, so I want to get the benefits that I am owed. But obviously I don't want to take more than my share. So, and I am very much a rule follower, so I am going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm doing everything to the T. But that was a concern that was put out there, and I appreciate people, bringing those things up, because it gives me the opportunity to research and make sure I know for sure, where things stand. And so that was very helpful for me. So thank you for the folks that did make those comments. And speaking of that, please, if you have any feedback, suggestions, ideas, just want to say hi, please note those down below. I am going to bring this to a close. Again, thank you so much for everybody who has not only subscribed, but is also taking the time to watch, like, and all of that. I do very much appreciate it. I am so glad to have you guys along, especially as we are meeting these previously unattainable seeming goals. I don't know if my voice really expresses how excited I am about this, especially because now I'm already like, oh well, we now have this debt that we have to do, and this debt, but I am so incredibly excited that we have no shared credit card debt any longer. We no longer owe my mom any money, and we are on our way to now getting Mr. M's car payment paid off. After we do the car payment, it will be his credit card, but he's already said, he's like, I have a feeling that I'll be able to bring that down myself. So that may not even be part of the equation. And then that will just leave us with the big mamma jamma, which would be our mortgage. And at that point, we will need to make some decisions on how quickly we are going to try and tackle that big one versus some of the other goals we have, like investing and additional savings and stuff like that. But that is future stuff, and we will have to talk about that when it becomes a little bit more pertinent. At least at this point, we have closed out November, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen to me babble on. So with that as my last little bit, I hope we see you in the next one.